Well, this is the fifth in a series on righteousness. And I've been discussing something so wonderful that angels look at this and they're just amazed. And God actually looks at this and he's overwhelmed. And that thing of wonder is you, and it's me. That God would leave everything, give up everything to pursue the likes of you and me should give you pause. David said, when I consider the entirety of creation, how can I be a distraction for you? To be crass, David's saying, who am I that when I walk by, you would turn your head and follow me? And who am I that you would stalk me? But I have a feeling that this is not how you perceive yourself. You might love the God who saved a wretch like you, but I'm not so sure you love the God whose breath is taken away every time you open your eyes up in the morning. Abraham, even after 10 years of walking with the Lord, did not see himself as God did. God had told him, you are the father of many nations. You're as significant as I am. You're as full. You're as much of a father as I am. But it took many times of God telling Abraham who Abraham was for it to finally seep into his soul. Why? Well, the more important question is, why hasn't your beauty and your significance, your special place in the heart of God, seeped into yours? Well, Jesus explains why in the parable of the sower. Often this parable is explained fatalistically. You're either this type of soil or that type of soil, and you can't do much about it. But Jesus says you can, and in this parable is giving you the pathway to becoming what God imagined for you to be. It's the pathway to fruitfulness. And that pathway, as I mentioned in the last couple posts, is going through this process of faith, of hope, of love. So Jesus, in this parable, explains both the vision for your life, which is fruitfulness, and the specific obstacles in each stage along the way. There's no problem for the word or for the seed to produce what it wants to produce. It just needs to find acceptable soil. And Jesus is constantly sowing this seed in your direction. It's a seed that was chosen specifically for you. And Jesus also makes clear that the seed is the word which is spoken. And one way that you'll know is when something resonates, and we have to be aware and just take note when something resonates. To write that down, because this is God. But for the seed to penetrate, you must attend to your heart. This seed must be received by faith. And this is the faith stage where it all begins. So let's look at the first soil. Jesus describes it as a pathway. A pathway is a well-worn road that is packed down and hardened. It's filled with presumptions and a lifetime of being told and telling yourself what you are not. This is your belief system, subconsciously being played out in your mind. And for many years, Abraham's soul, as well as yours and as well as mine, we've believed things contrary to what God thinks and God says about you. And this has caused a sort of crust to form over your soul that resists even the things of God. And yes, I'm talking to Christians. It is possible to open up your heart to God while keeping your heart closed to the possibility of you. Each of us, again, has this internal tape recorder telling us things that God would never say to you, nor would he think to you. He's just playing over and over again in your mind. But really, when you think about it, God doesn't help much because what he says about you is unbelievable. What God says about you is so heretical, most preachers will not touch it with a 10-foot pole. But God finally confronted Abraham and got his unbelief out in the open in Genesis 15. God, in essence, put a shovel into the hardness of Abraham's heart and turned over some soil. And Abraham finally heard, understood, and believed. So, beloved, there is some crustiness, I imagine, in your soul as well. So can you be honest and tell the Lord that you've been fooling yourself all these years and haven't really believed what God has said about himself or about you? And I think honesty is the key. It was for Abraham. Abraham had an honest complaint. But for you, it might be, creating a space of time where you can get away and just say, God, I've given up on myself and my dreams, but I want to open my heart up again, once again to you. Or maybe you've never even let yourself venture down the road of God's great love for you with all of its implications because you've been beat up all your life. But it can be just as simple as opening your hands to God and saying, I'm here, Lord. I'm listening. And then be quiet. I've been listening quite a bit lately to Lauren Daigle's song, You Say I Am Loved, because of its honesty and its declarations, and it might also be a good thing for you to do. The seed God has for you is specific. While coated with the universality of his love, his seed for you is unique because he's made you unique. And God is constantly sowing that seed toward you and in your heart. You are loved, so loved. You have a destiny which angels desire, but you need to be willing for his shovel to turn over some dirt. So before I proceed to the hope stage, I want to take a trip back with you to the garden because I haven't fully defined righteousness yet. And there in the garden, you and I will discover what righteousness or being right looks like. Till then,